Dun, dun, dun. So we were going to cover, usually I do a bit of chat in the beginning, but we have like a 10-minute period in the middle. And so I thought we just jumped right into it.
Two 10-minute periods.
Okay. But I do want to ask you why you picked this recipe. I mean, it's only like a 4-ingredient applesauce, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I count 5.
Yep.
Oh,
So
no,
apples, beef, broth,
6.
whiskey,
There's
cinnamon
salt.
powder, onion powder, cumin powder, and salt.
No cumin. Cumin is a substitute for the onion. You can do it that way if you want. I'll talk about that when we get to it, but it's the ingredients. So let's put them out here. Beef stock, but you can make it with vegetable stock if you're a vegetarian. I don't think it's as good, but it's not bad. So beef stock.
I was actually thinking there was other ways you could put umami, like soy sauce or miso, or I don't know. I'm gonna riff off of this.
I don't think the umami is going to be missing if you use vegetable stock. I really don't. But if somebody's making it with vegetable stock, you could tell me. I've never made it that way. So salt, whiskey. I've got Jim Beam today. It doesn't matter what kind, because it's going to be. Actually,
before the show, I usually don't prep. This had like a wax top, and it took me a few minutes to get it.
Oh, you got Maker's Mark?
No, it says Hudson.
Oh, I don't even know that.
It's from New York.
Because the whiskey is going to burn off, although what remains is some of the sweet from the whiskey. So salt, whiskey, onion powder. You can substitute cumin. You can substitute any number of things, and a little bit of cinnamon, and that's it.
Right.
This is applesauce, but you asked, why did I choose this? I'm going to start coring apples while we talk, if that's all right.
So I have this device. This was probably the best $24 I ever did. It'll do potatoes and apples, but the main thing is the core thing.
Well, I just use an old-fashioned apple core. By the way, I find I get better results if I start on the bottom of the apple.
So,
yep, perfect the first time. Here I got my compost is over here, so I'm going to have to disappear a little bit when I eject the apple.
Well, I just got a bowl here to transport it over to the compost.
Yeah, that's probably, why don't I just do the same thing? Since
I was thinking, well, my compost is like halfway full, so it's kind of a little smelly, and I didn't want to.
Yeah, so I'm going to close my compost. That's going to be a lot less smelly. So look, I want to take this up to the, oh, there's the kitty. I want to take this up to.
There we go. It's finally stuck to the counter.
That is an apple that's gone over. You want to know what to do with that?
Cider. No.
No, nothing. That goes in. So,
okay.
Yeah. When I say the apple has gone over,
now we're just putting it right into the pot, right?
It's got one. It's not going to make any difference. And actually, one of the things I like to say about this recipe is I am most likely to make it when I have a batch of apples that have not that have not been eaten, that are going bad.
Now you're just coring them. You're not peeling them in any way.
No, the peels have the tart. You don't want to take the peels off, because that's where the tart in the applesauce comes.
Yeah, I love this device. Look at what it does to the apple. It cores it, and then it does this to it.
Well, that seems like more than is necessary. But actually, it's always kind of fun to watch the guy eject the apple cores. So I guess I'll put that over there where y'all can see it. So anyway, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 apples, but that's because they're small. These are galas. You can do this with any apples. You can mix the apples if you want.
But I would think red apples would get you the more tartness of the skin, you said.
Well, it depends on what kind of green apple you're talking about, because some of the
that's true. Granny apples are tart.
I mean, there are apple aficionados out there, and I have to be honest, I have my favorites when it comes to apples, and galas are not on the list. But that's because I like exceptionally tart apples.
Gala seems to be the one that holds the longest the well. So it's like
It does last, it's true.
and I
And
tend to buy them and they
so
stick around longest. So
the origin of this recipe is I don't eat galas. And somebody brought a bag of them. And they sat
you had to use up the bad apples.
there and as you point out, they do keep, you know, I hate wasting food. I just hate it. And so anyway, I'm sitting here staring at a bag of galas. I think there were 5 or 6 in it and thinking to myself, well,
So this is completely your recipe. It's not like
no,
something you found.
it's entirely mine. Yeah. I'm gonna wash my hands here. I've got apple juice all over them.
So let's see. We're doing like about 8 of them. I guess the more you do, the more it is. But
Yeah, well, the more you get. So the last batch I made was only about 5 and it disappeared instantaneously because, as you are going to discover, this is a pretty yummy recipe. Now, most people will want to use this. That is not what I use. You can
use what?
Processor. I use this thing. Hey, Giorgio, this is made in Switzerland. This is a hand.
I want one of those.
Oh man, they're fantastic. It's a hand food processor. You put the food in there, and then you pull it like a lawnmower.
Oops.
And one of the things that is so great about it is, well, first of all, it cleans up just like that. So unlike most of these kitchen gizmos that you buy, you save time in the preparation, but you end up you end up losing that time and cleaning it up. This thing cleans up just like that.
I definitely don't use a food processor very frequently because how long it takes to clean it. Yep.
Well, and that's the reason I like this thing, and I use it for everything. Chopping garlic, chopping onions, chopping peppers, chopping anything you can imagine. So anyway, all I'm going to do with these things is I'm going to cut them into quarters and put them in the food processor. Another thing, this hand food processor, another thing that's great about this is that it gives you total control over the mince.
You are the motor, huh?
Yeah, you get used to your machine and how many pulls it takes to get you where you want with your with whatever it is you're doing. It will not really take it all the way to puree though. And so if you're making split pea soup or something, this is not your beast.
So basically you're just getting the apples, coring them, and then chopping them into like, well, essentially long-term mincing them, but right now you're just chopping them like bite size.
So I'm putting my pan over here. And
now, have you done it in a blender?
No, I've never done it because I always use this thing. I am sure it will work in a blender, but here's the thing. I'm going to show you the consistency of what I'm doing here.
Because all I have is a blender.
7. Now the ones on the bottom are a little more chopped than the ones on the top. But
so I have this one tool that shortens how quick it is, but now I need that other one.
You see that?
I mean, I can do a whole bushel of apples in about 10 minutes with this machine.
I'm sure you can, but here's the thing. This is what you want. Because
okay, so I'll have to put it in the blender to get that.
Look at the picture, or you're showing the picture.
Yeah. The texture of your applesauce is everything. It's everything. And so anyway, that's what you want. So I'm going to put that batch in my pan and show it to you in the pan in case that's a little easier to see.
Let me throw mine in the blender real quick and try to catch up.
Well, if you throw it in the blender, well, I'm trying to get it.
That's my only choice.
Yeah, of course it's your choice, but here's the thing, texture.
Or I could do it, mix it with my knife.
Okay, so I'm going to now do that with the rest of these apples. You talk about cardinals or whatever you think while I do that.
Let me see how hard it is to mince it with my knife to get to that texture.
Doesn't take long to do this, but
Yeah, Amazon sells those things from around like, $11 or something.
yeah,
Oh,
they're not
really?
expensive at all.
I'm gonna have to get one. That's like, I love things that don't take electricity.
Yeah. It's got like over 7,000, 4-star reviews. Different ones. Very
All
popular.
Yeah, this thing for me, I mean, it changed my life as a cook. It really did.
I mean, I've seen the little ones that
That's
do like
my
garlic,
machine.
like
Your
small
machine
ones,
might
but
not
that's
be
a bigger
so-
one. Oops. All right. I'm lazy. Let me try the consistency in the blender. And then I'll try cutting it up. Of course, what do we do? 8 apples?
Well, I've got 8 small ones.
Okay.
Got to do this, you might as well want to do a few apples. The first time I ever did it, I only had 5, but that's because that's how many there were in the bag of uneaten apples. And then it disappeared so fast, I thought, well, I better.
Decent, but it's not as minced as yours. All right, let me try it with a knife.
4, 5, 6, 7.
But that'll take, I think actually doing it with a knife will be quicker than using a blender. We'll see here.
Really? Okay. Well, I guess it depends on how good you are with a knife. You must be better than I am, because it would take me forever to do this with a knife.
But part of it is how it's already cut real thin with my I don't know, professional core. I don't know what it is. What's it called? So,
Oh, that's true. Yeah, since you're using that thing,
because it already slices
might
it
change
this way.
that might, especially if you turn it the right way with your knife.
Yeah, so I'm just cutting it this way, and it comes out. I mean, I don't know. It looks about the same as your mince, but
Yeah. That looks like a seed that survived on that side, but we'll. So for the purpose
you
of,
literally started doing this because you had apples you didn't like, and you were trying to flavor them up.
well, I was trying to figure out something to do to it so that they wouldn't be wasted.
Right. I feel like I've seen a slightly similar recipe for like kind of like a chutney that you put over like meat.
Yeah. I could easily imagine that. But the thing is, that would be spiced very differently.
Should I start cooking these as I'm cutting the other ones in?
Well, so I mean, here's the thing. You're going to get an applesauce here that tastes like something you had as a kid in the school cafeteria, except that it's going to be like 100 times tastier. And part of the reason
you said school cafeteria, that's not a good starting point.
I know, but the point is that when we were growing up, our mothers gave us all this stuff out of a can, out of a jar, out of a can. And so we're moving into the next phase, by the way. And it was okay, I don't know, Gerber's applesauce or Mott's.
Do you have yours starting to cook already?
We're about to move to that, yeah.
Okay.
Are you not up?
I figure I could be cutting up I've cut about half of them but I could start the pan and add the rest to it.
I wouldn't do that.
Okay, so cut them all up first.
No, I want it to cook uniformly. I wouldn't. So I can wait for
You're
you.
really into the texture because you're like wanting.
Yes, the texture. I mean, so one of the things that's going to make this so much better than the applesauce from a jar, I mean, it is going to taste like that. It's going to be very familiar. This is not going to be an unusual tasting applesauce. The difference is the depth and the blend and the texture.
Okay.
This is just yummy in a way. It's like what you always wanted applesauce to be. And it's not pureed, and that makes a big difference because if you got it pureed, that's not going to be that sort of kills a third of
Yeah, I
what
mean, I grew up on applesauce, but we called it apple butter, so it had like a thicker texture and actual texture instead of just watery.
I regard apple butter as a completely different product because it has all that brown sugar in it, and it's often got syrup as an ingredient. The apple butter is delicious. I love it. My neighbors over there, the Joneses, Mike and Sharon Jones, they make homemade apple butter every fall when the apples come in. And you want to be my neighbor. I mean, you want to be a neighbor of theirs. When they're making the apple butter, it's apparently.
I guess what I called apple butter is essentially, we never added any sugar. It would be just using the sweetness of the apples, and then it would be less cooked and less blended, I guess, applesauce. But
gosh, I mean, that doesn't sound like what I call apple butter at all. Apple butter to me is something that's even more pureed. It is much more cooked because they cook it until it's dark brown. And it has brown sugar in it. But anyway, yeah, but you grew up there on that farm where everybody made everything from scratch, right?
Yeah. And we didn't, sometimes you'd add sorghum.
Mm-hmm.
That's
what I'm talking about, sorghum. So when I said syrup, I meant sorghum syrup.
Or blackstrap molasses to
molasses. Exactly. That's what makes apple butter is the syrup. So whether it's molasses or whether it's sorghum syrup, they use sorghum. My next door neighbor, the Joneses, they use sorghum syrup when they make theirs. And it's dark brown. It doesn't look like applesauce at all. You cook it a lot longer.
All right. I've got about 5 more pieces of apple here.
All right. Gonna wait for you.
There's a seed. Get the seed out.
Yeah, I had a stray seed too. In fact, I've kept it as a pet. It's right here.
Have you named it yet?
Bill.
But
Bill the seed.
Like, all right, everybody else who's watching, please be seated. All right, this last bit is some of the ends, and it's not getting as small. I need to triple cut this to make it the same. I mean, usually when I'm cooking lots of food, I'm not really about getting everything the same. But you said texture is really important for this.
It is for this.
All right, so we'll get everything uniform. All right, I am ready to start cooking, I guess.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my beef broth. You can take your vegetable broth if you want. I'm about to turn up the heat, which I've just done. We're going to boil. This is cooked very, very hot. And so what I'm going to do is
I've got a quart. What do you put? About half of it.
So I'm going to put in the beef broth until it fills in around all the
This little teeny thing on the top here is childproof. Come on. There we go.
All right. So there it is. It has filled in around, but is not above. I'm going to give it a stir.
But you don't want to use all of this. You're going to save some for later, right? I mean, I have a quart.
I know you don't use all the beef broth. You fill in around, and then you put it on the highest heat you've got. In fact, I'm about to switch it to my hot burner.
Right.
So just so I can do that.
I still can't believe that onion and beef broth and whiskey. Anyway, we'll see.
You'll see, won't you?
I mean, it's kind of like all the taste. I mean, if you got the skin on, you're getting a little sour. The apple itself is sweet. And you said it's better if the apple is kind of like starting to go bad. It's sweeter, right?
It doesn't hurt anything. I don't know if I would say it's better. But yeah, I mean, it's a little sweeter, sure. But the sweet is an illusion. So insofar as the apple is sweet, you're going to get some sweetness there. And a gala apple is what I guess I would call medium sweet. It's not, well, I don't know. It might be in the middle in terms of tart to sweet. But anyway, so what I'm doing, by the way, is I'm going to boil off the beef broth here. Not entirely, but almost entirely, because what we're doing is the apple is going to take up the beef broth. Just like rice, if you're cooking rice, the way it takes up water. You do have to leave it uncovered in order for that to work. If you cover it, it'll never happen. All right, we're getting, I don't think you guys can see it, but we're getting a nice boil here. It's going to take about 10 minutes for it to take up the beef broth.
And I was thinking to try, what do you call it? I was trying to think of substitutes of beef broth. I don't know why I didn't think of vegetable broth, but I was trying to think of substitutes with unami. And I was thinking maybe, get a cup of water and put like, some soy sauce in it or some miso to get a vegetarian unami flavor. What you're saying,
well, if
vegetable broth might work okay.
I understand what you're saying. And of course, we all have our theories, don't we? But if you use the soy sauce and you dilute it with water, and I can see that, you'd want to use the low sodium soy sauce, and you'd want to cut the salt out later.
Right.
Because if you use soy sauce, it's going to have possibly more salty than you want, but if you use the low sodium, it won't be as bad. Because this recipe does not require very much salt. It's amazing how little salt. I mean, there'll be more onion powder than anything else. Very little cinnamon, very little salt. And so because it's just not necessary. If you put it in there, it'll take over.
So mine's starting to simmer already.
Yeah, good.
And you can see, I don't know if you can see, but what do you call it? Steam's coming up.
Yeah, that's what's happening over here too. This is going nicely, and it smells wonderful, by the way. It's interesting, this sort of combination of beef broth and apples. It creates an interesting aroma. I guess I'm done with my apple cores. I'll put them in the compost.
People will be proud of me. Somehow I managed to not use all the apples. Usually whenever I have something, I just make massive quantities of.
Well, you could do that with this. There isn't any reason why not. I have about 6 galas left from the bag that I bought. I was laughing when I was buying it because I would never buy a bag of gala apples. I just wouldn't do it. But they're not even in my top 10 of favorite apples. But
so have you tried this with your favorite apples, or you just always want to use?
Yes, I've done it with a mix of apples before. It works. This pretty much works with anything. But I have to be honest with you, the best result I ever got was with the galas. But it works with everything. And there's 2 reasons why it works with the galas. I think it has to do with where they fall on the sweet tart scale.
Yeah.
That's part of it. And I think part of it is the consistency of a gala, which is not as cakey as a Jonathan or a Brayburn, but it's not as what would you put it, resistant as a Red Delicious or a Cosmic Crisp or a Honey Crisp. Or my guess is your second best choices would be Pink Ladies and Fuji's, because those are light galas, but they're just one cut up and tart. And so anyway,
But also, I mean, like,
I
do you
love my
prefer
apples.
really sweet or do you prefer really tart?
Well, when I'm eating apples, I want them as tart as possible.
Okay.
Yeah. So I buy Cosmic Crisps, for example.
Mine is just boiling away. Look at all that steam.
Oh yeah. That's mine is bubbling, but maybe a difference in our pots. I'm using an iron skillet. That's what I use for almost everything. Here, part of the reason is I have gas, and I'm used to cooking with gas, and I get used to the way that an iron skillet cools and heats. And so I know
I recommend trying induction because I haven't used my gas stove at home. I'm actually traveling, so I'm out of state. I haven't used my gas stove in probably 6 months since I got induction burner, and it actually has tighter control than the gas does. I don't know. I
agree.
I resisted for a long time getting one, but now, and of course mine is powered off of solar.
In Europe, I use induction all the time, and I'm very much used to it.
Yeah, I like induction. I'm the same category as Or. Since I got my induction burner, and I have electric stovetop. Since I got my induction burner, I never use the other burners.
I agree with your judgment about you get tighter control with induction. I agree with that. However, I don't think that there's anything to criticize about the results with induction. Probably, well, we're buying an apartment in Europe and it'll probably have induction, and I'll be very, very happy. I hate electric stoves, I have to be honest, but in terms of, I've gotten used to my cookware here at home with the gas stove.
So what texture am I shooting for here? Just boil the water off?
You're not looking for a texture yet. What you're looking for is for the apples to take up the broth. I've got my timer set for 10 minutes. We have another 4 minutes to go. Got it.
So once it starts boiling, shoot for 10 minutes, or I mean,
yeah,
you're just trying to have it soak
I waited for it to boil and then I set it for 10 minutes. And I mean, of course, I guess it matters how wet the apples are too. I mean, you're trying to reduce the moisture out. Well, no, what you're trying to do is get you can strain it. I usually don't have to. You can strain it. What we're doing here is that the apples are taking up the beef broth. So it's just absorbing it. Yeah. We are flavoring. I actually can't see it. It's got too much steam. Let me look at it. Yeah. Yeah, you're in some kind of a big boiler, whereas I am in a deep iron skillet. I think we may get different results because I never use a boiler for this, or at least I never have. I always use an iron skillet. So your skillet's like only two inches high instead of like a deep pot. No, it's like 4 inches high. Oh, okay. It's a deep skillet. Got it. So this one is like 2 inches high, but I have a deep one that I'm using to cook this. Instead of a soup pot, yeah. Yeah. This is actually a pressure cooker. It's a manual. Okay. Huh. It's a manual pressure cooker. But it's interesting. It's got what do you call it? A timer that doesn't need batteries. Somehow it's got a digital timer. I haven't figured out how it. One of those that I don't know how it really works either. But I have to say, I get good results every time I use it. It somehow uses heat to power it. It's got like 2 probes here. I don't know. But Anyway, just, any well-equipped kitchen is gonna have that. So. In
I mean,
terms,
and part of it was, I don't tend to have beef broth, so I was trying to think of what other things that would I have regularly that would give an umami taste, so.
oh, well, oh gosh, there's lots of ways to get that. So just to give you an example, one of the things that I use to get an umami when I don't want to use meat, broths or something like that, is you can chop up mushrooms, and you can put chopped or minced, extremely fine sun-dried tomatoes with mushrooms, and then salt it. And
My favorite, you just described my spice mix. It's a sun-dried tomatoes
so if you do
and
that,
dried mushrooms.
if you do that, you will think you're eating meat. So I don't know why.
Yeah, that's the base of my spice mix, and I have like 3
Is it
versions.
really? So,
Yeah. I have to get it tested by the state, because the state requires anything with tomatoes to be tested before I can commercially sell it. But I can get you send you a
well,
a sample taster. So
I believe you, because I discovered this myself, and you're the first person I've ever talked to who also does the same thing. I'm going to hold this up here. I bought this in Poland from a Turkish store. And what this is it's minced sun-dried tomatoes. It just saves you the time of having to chop up your sun-dried tomatoes. You put this with mushrooms and salt, and you've got yourself umami in anything you cook.
yeah, I actually had to make one version without mushrooms, because apparently a lot of people are allergic to mushrooms.
Oh, well, there's lots of other ways to do it. That was just a
So
suggestion.
I have 3 versions of my spice. One of them is without mushrooms, and then one of them is without really hotness, because I add a lot of, well, heat to my spice. It's like, for me, it's like a blend of Italian seasoning and Cajun seasoning, but with a sun-dried tomato base.
Mhm.
But,
Okay,
anyway.
well, we're good with mine. I have arrived where I want to be. I have
All right.
a sort of
So
a.
turn the heat off. Or?
I have a medium. Yeah, I'm turning the heat off. Oh, look! Immediately, as soon as I turn the heat off, it begins to release steam. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to move this off the heat.
Can we see what it looks like up close so we can tell how much absorption has to happen when you declare it at this point?
Declare it. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. It's
Like,
true.
Randy, you were saying if there is extra moisture in the end, you could drain it, I guess, right?
Yeah, you could, but I don't have any. This is
mine has just a little bit of moisture still.
Mine is right. So
but it's interesting. Like, it mostly disappeared. When I think of applesauce,
I'll tell you what, I'm going to move the camera rather than try to do this, because I can't. This thing is too heavy to pick up high. I don't know whether I can get that camera back where it is when I do this.
Like, yeah, you have almost no moisture, huh?
No. But
it doesn't look very good under that light. It looks pretty gray.
Yeah, it looks kind of gray, but it isn't. It's a beautiful brown. Yeah, sorry about the light, but that's not. It's a beautiful brown. Trust me. So let me see if I can get this back where it was. I don't know.
All right.
Maybe. All right. So what we're going to do now is season it.
All right. Here comes the weird part. Onion powder, huh?
Yeah. The important thing is not to let it carbonize at this stage. You're going to carbonize it a little bit later, but so I'm putting it back over here on the stove. Can you still see it? Now I'll keep it here because that way you can watch me season it. Okay. All right. First, take a glass of wine, take a drink.
Just like,
Is it optional to have a little sip of whiskey while you're making it?
You can. I don't drink whiskey, and so I'm having wine. But here's the thing: before you season anything, you should drink alcohol.
why is that? I mean, it seems like it would deaden your taste.
Well, no. I don't. So you're not going to taste anything.
That's why people drink wine. It enhances flavor of food.
I think that's probably true. So anyway, here, let me make sure that my onion powder is really loose. It is.
If nothing else, you're having more fun.
That is absolutely true. Anyway, I'm having as much fun as a person is legally allowed to have right at the moment.
I actually have like every type of powder, but I didn't have onion powder. I actually had to go buy some onion powder.
It doesn't have to be onion powder. It can be, they're about, I can think of about
So you said
six,
cumin. Could you do garlic powder?
7 spices that do the same work. What they are, garlic powder will do it, but garlic powder will leave a taste. Cumin will do it, but it will leave a taste. However, the taste will be very good, as with garlic powder. You can, there are ones you can use. So you can use turmeric is basically neutral. Oh, this will come as a surprise to you. Mustard powder. You can use mustard powder instead of onion powder. And what I'm doing, you'll never taste it. It's going away. What it is it's a flavor binder. Mustard powder works that way in any recipe, by the way. It doesn't taste like mustard, not when you cook it. And so there are, I don't know, half a dozen different spices that I call flavor binders. They're not like eggs or, cornstarch that actually bind things in baking or something. What these are is flavor binders because they fill in this middle area in the tongue. And what you're looking for is something that answers to every part of the tongue, which is what you're going to get with this applesauce, by the way. It's going to answer to every part of the tongue. That's why it's so yummy. But this onion powder, it occupies the middle. You're not going to taste it, but I could just as easily use mustard powder and you wouldn't taste that either. So anyway,
So I know you had said earlier that cinnamon you don't want to put very much.
No, it'll take
Put too much onion powder?
No, not really. You can be generous.
It pretty much disappears, you said.
So I'm about to do it. It disappears. It does. And remember, I'm putting this on before we boil this thing.
So I mean, I have about 2 tablespoons. Should I just use the whole
That'll
thing?
be enough. So you see how this thing is basically full right now. I'm going to put about a quarter of this jar in there.
So what's the minimum you can put in?
There we go. That's about it. Well, you need to be generous with it.
Okay.
So I've essentially covered the top.
Now, when it's cooked, do you smell the onion at all?
Not at all. You're not going to taste it at all. It binds. It doesn't taste.
All right.
I can tell you this: if you leave it out, your applesauce isn't going to be nearly as good.
Okay.
So,
but you didn't mix it in.
you don't really have to, because I'm going to stir it once I do this. I am about to put the whiskey in, though.
Okay, before you move on though, if you were, let's say, using mustard or cumin or turmeric, would it be about the same quantity of onion powder that you're using?
I would use less cumin. I would use less. Now, turmeric is safe. What that's going to give you on the far end is something that goes up your nose that you'll never be able to identify, but you could put almost as much turmeric as you wanted. And it would bind the flavors and it would leave behind a little aroma. The cumin you have to be a little more careful with because that'll take over if you're not careful. But it also does the work of what I guess I would call deep binding of flavors.
With turmeric, to get the health benefits, you have to have a fat. so you're not going to get the health benefits.
I take tons of turmeric every day as an anti-inflammatory because I have arthritis and it does wonders. But in terms of what it tastes like, if you want to see what turmeric can really do, what you want to do is get that Ethiopian spice combination, Barbary, I think is what it's called.
Burberry? Yeah, I don't know.
Barbary. I can't remember what it's called exactly, except I have it right in here.
Yeah.
Anyway, here it is. Stuff is falling. It's I can't read. I gotta get my glasses. I don't have glasses.
So you said you don't drink whiskey. You literally bought the whiskey just for this recipe, or?
I keep whiskey on hand because other people drink it.
Okay.
It's Burberry. Yeah. And so anyway, it's like it's your Ethiopian spice rack in one combined powder. But you don't want to put that in this, although it might be interesting now that I think about it, might be interesting to do.
It's just like, you're just like, let's try everything. But in this case, it worked out. I mean, all right, so we need to get some whiskey because we need to get cooking.
This is being recorded. All right, so I'm going to put, so what I said in the recipe is a half to a quarter cup. This is a big batch, so I'm going to put a half a cup. I actually am going to measure this. It's something that I don't do that often, but I'm going to do it this time. Because you don't want too much whiskey.
Even though it cooks off?
A quarter cup would be about 5 apples. Half a cup would be 8, like this. So, putting my whiskey in.
That's a substantial amount.
Well, it is, but it's going away, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And speaking of going away, let's make it go away, shall we? That means it's time to put this back on.
What heat level? The same all the way hot?
Absolutely, you want to boil it. You want to boil. So the highest heat you've got. We're going to add the salt and the cinnamon at the end. I'm not sure that's absolutely necessary. That's just the way I've always done it.
If you're used to applesauce with cinnamon, you probably should.
Well, remember, we're not going to put enough. You're not going to taste any cinnamon in this. This is not.
Wait a second. We're putting a whole bunch of stuff in here that you don't taste.
You're not going to taste the cinnamon. You're going to have the sensation of sweet on your tongue.
Okay. So it's interesting. You're like putting a bunch of stuff in here, like the alcohol boils off. You don't taste the garlic.
All about the tongue. All right. So, I mean, it's a question of giving your tongue what it wants. And so there needs to be something that distributes itself across the whole tongue. And we have the sour, we have the sweet, we have the umami, we have the tart, we've got the
now you don't want to over stir this because you're not trying to get it to be.
Right now, we're going to burn it.
Oh.
We're doing right now is we're going to burn this stuff. So,
but you're not trying to stir it too much because you're not trying to get it to be like a sauce.
You need to stir it very much because you're going to burn it.
Okay. So we're boiling off all the water now.
All the liquid and then some. But so right at the moment, there's plenty of liquid in there. By the way, it's giving off a very interesting smell. You can tell that there's whiskey in there.
Oh yeah. I smelled a little too deep on that one. Oh man, that's the after smell of that is really good.
So anyway, we're going to burn off all the water, all of it. I mean, all the liquid. And then we're going to let it cook some more. So I don't know what's happening to yours, but mine is making a very interesting applesauce texture right now. When the liquid starts to get going, it starts to disappear entirely. We have to stir constantly.
Okay.
We might cut back the heat just a little. It depends on what's happening with our sauce.
How much it's sticking.
Yeah. Well, you don't want it to stick at all. You need to. So if it starts sticking, you need to keep stirring.
Okay.
I'm in an iron skillet. And some people think of iron skillets as things that stick, but mine don't. I'm not sure. Oh, I have the most beautiful redhead woodpecker straight out my window right now. Oh my gosh, what a gorgeous bird. Anyway, so yeah, you don't want it to stick at all. But what's going to happen is you're going to start seeing some brown up here. Now, you said that you usually start out by asking some questions. What questions did you already ask them?
I've asked a couple of them. My most common question is, you covered it pretty much, is, why did you pick this recipe to share with us?
I didn't pick it, you did.
Well, that's true. You gave me like 6 different ones, and I was like, that's the weirdest one.
That's not true. That's not the weirdest one.
Well, I think, what was the weirder one?
I've got it in the refrigerator.
Uh-oh. Just like,
I think this is the weirdest. I think this is the weirdest recipe I've got. I'm about to pull it out and show it to you. I call it my very strange summer salad. I'll send it to you if you like.
just like.
So, this is a cold salad. It's a cucumber salad. It has leeks, black grapes, edamame, trying to remember what all is in it. Pecans.
I mean, so far everything tastes well. I don't know about edamame. I'm not really totally into edamame.
Figs, black grapes, edamame, pecans. And anyway, you put this Kin's raspberry walnut vinaigrette and you let it sit for a day and serve it cold. And it's got everything. This has everything your tongue wants.
So why is that weird? It doesn't sound weird to me.
Edamame, figs, cucumbers, and black grapes, and leeks. Are you kidding me?
I take it back. It sounds like someone, a drunk person, came up with. I mean, but at the end, I mean, it's like a lot of good savory flavors.
But it's sweet. It's entirely sweet.
I mean,
so anyway, it's a dessert. That thing is literally a dessert. I have a 3-bean salad that's not 3 beans. It's got everything in it. All right, no, we're good.
I forgot. I mean, I think we've scheduled you to cook something else, but I forgot what it was. So.
No, we didn't schedule it yet, but we can. My absolute specialty. So I'm setting this thing for 5 minutes so that we don't get carried away.
Yep.
And talking.
Now, what do you usually eat this with?
Right at the moment, I don't have to stir it constantly, but in 5 minutes I will.
Yeah, it's starting to.
We're in the home stretch here.
What do you eat this with or serve this with? I mean, besides a spoon.
Huh? Oh, I'm just stirring it with a wooden spoon.
No, what do you eat it with?
Anything you want.
So you don't have like a go-to that just this is perfect with?
Oh. Of course I do. It's in the oven right now.
Oh.
I mean, this we're having this for lunch. Pork chops and applesauce. So
there you
who in the listening group understands when I say pork chops and applesauce?
Yeah, they go together.
What's that?
They go together.
Well, yeah, but if I say pork chops and applesauce,
is that a literary reference?
It's not a literary reference. Anybody get it? Pork chops and applesauce.
No, tell us.
It's the Brady Bunch.
Oh.
Peter becomes fascinated with Mickey Spillane and detective novels. And so he comes down and he asks Carol and Alice, his mom and Alice, well, his stepmom and Alice, just, so what's for dinner? And they say, pork chops and applesauce. And Peter says, oh, pork chops and applesauce. Anyway, it's Brady Bunch, it's Brady Bunch. You're too young.
I'm having a hard time not constantly stirring. When I do applesauce, I usually want it to be really well broke down.
I have arrived at the place where I have to stir constantly now. So I'm gonna turn the timer off.
So how did you decide that when you just start running out of
Well, I can,
liquid?
there's no moisture left. And so now I am cooking it in earnest.
So it would probably been helpful for me to have a wider skillet. More moisture would have escaped probably.
So we are in the home stretch here, and I'm watching for just a little bit of carbonization to appear.
I got too much moisture. I can't even see.
You know, I don't know how this works in other people's cooking implements.
I think in my case, it's because it's the it's not a skillet. If I had a skillet, it would have spread it out more.
Now, when you say carbonization, is that similar to caramelizing where you're kind of browning?
No, actually, no, there's going to be caramelizing means making those onions lucid, right? I think we're moving in the direction of burning it.
Okay.
So, I mean, caramelizing happens at 3/4 heat. We got this on the highest heat.
Okay.
I think I'm starting to be able to see it, so I think I'm starting to run out of moisture. But
Well, I have my sauce.
definitely next time I make this, I'll make it in a wider, skillet.
Yeah. I'm in my sauce and it is burning, but that's what it's supposed to do.
So I pulled it aside, and on the bottom of my pan, I still got just a little layer of water on the bottom.
Well, I got no water.
Yeah.
I got nothing. If I don't keep this moving, it's going to burn.
Yeah. So I think that's definitely the difference in the pans.
Yeah, it certainly is. I should have included in the recipe that this is done in an iron skillet, because that's different from doing things otherwise. So
Yeah, you never think about how different pots make things cook different ways.
Yeah. Well, since I use iron skillets for almost everything, it doesn't occur to me that
Right.
this is like a thing. Okay,
All
now
right.
to the point that I have to hold the handle. I don't know whether you can see what's happening here, but it's beautiful.
So yours is really starting to stick. Yeah.
It's great. I'm going to call Gay in here in a minute to taste it, because you wouldn't trust me.
You don't trust your own taste? You're gonna have your wife do it?
You wouldn't trust it. I trust my own taste. You wouldn't. All right, it's done. It's off the skillet.
All right, I think I've got probably 5 more minutes.
I'm going to keep stirring it.
Basically, I've reached the point where there's when I stir it, I don't see any water, but moisture is still coming out.
Okay.
And I can see it clearly. But you go ahead, I'll try to catch up. Well,
I have to keep stirring it because I'm in an iron pot. I'm in an iron skillet. It's off the heat, but it ain't done.
oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, no, it's still cooking.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem I have with electric is you have to take it off.
Yeah, you don't
shut it
have
off.
you don't have that kind of control.
But
even with gas like I've got, I still need to keep it moving until this pan cools down a little bit.
and I mean, I have at home I have electric because I have solar, so I want to power that off my electricity.
Well, thanks to you, I have solar too.
Well, then you need to start switching off the gas, so you're all powerful. It's like,
And
that's
so look,
kind of the new trend now. People are saying they're gonna
I agree.
eliminate their gas.
About convection, I agree with it, but I dreamed of a gas stove for so many years, and then I finally got it, and I'm not giving it up now. And besides, I'm used to it. I know how to make this work for me. I learned how to cook in Europe with a convection stove too, and it's a little different. Well, it's actually a lot different because you don't use any iron.
I love the texture of this. It's not, like, well, applesauce is like a puree. This has a lot of good texture to it.
You're gonna like it. All right, it's time to season it. You're gonna be amazed at how little this is. I am about to salt it. That's it.
I was gonna go grab some salt, but this is starting to do the sticking part.
Yeah,
So
you
now
got
it's
it.
starting
Yeah,
to-
So I would say that in terms of how much cinnamon we're looking at, I'm using an actual teaspoon. Not only am I not gonna fill it.
So you're not even doing like a full teaspoon, like three quarters of a teaspoon, or
Probably about a quarter of a teaspoon.
oh, even a quarter.
Yeah, it's enough. You do any more than that, and it's going to take over. And you don't want that. I mean, unless you want cinnamon applesauce, but that's not what this is. I mean, cinnamon applesauce is glorious. It's its own thing. But that's not what this is. This is applesauce. The idea is to deceive the tongue into thinking that it's eating something sweet when it's not.
I really like that though. We haven't put any sweetener in here at all.
No, there's not. It is not going to be necessary. Now, in a way, it's a little bit disappointing. I don't know whether you can see it. Here, let me
Yeah,
bring it up.
Yours looks like it's like retaining shape. It's like not saucy.
Yeah,
It's
it
like,
should be retaining shape. That's exactly right. Where's my
I mean, that's how mine is too. It's like,
excellent? Then I think we've done the same thing in different ways. All right, so look, 8 apples.
it's like, it looks like
That is all
maybe
you
a
get.
cup and a half of sauce.
Not much more than that, maybe 2 cups, but that's it. So we've really cooked it down. And as anybody who has ever done any serious cooking knows, when you cook down, you concentrate the flavors. And so there's a lot of flavor in this cooked down little pile here. This would probably, I think I've got 2.5 cups of applesauce here. It's not 3.
Yeah,
though.
mine is like, basically that's almost all of it is like one spatula scoop.
So I'm going to take a taste.
All right. I haven't put the cinnamon though. Should I put the cinnamon before I taste it? Yeah.
No. Put the you should do that. Yeah, you should do that before you taste it. No point in tasting it before that. So mine is
So you said a
perfect.
quarter teaspoon, just a little bit.
Yeah, it's just a little bit. And be sure to here you want to taste this on TV.
All right. I smell cinnamon now, but let's see when we mix it in if it.
Oh well, so probably once it gets in your nose, you're not going to be able to get it out of there. Because
That's true.
that's the nature of cinnamon. But the thing is I want you to pay attention to what you're tasting when you taste it. Mine is perfect. I hope yours is too.
I love the texture. I mean,
Mhm.
like I usually don't like applesauce because it's so like,
The texture,
you can pour it over stuff, but like just to eat it plain. All right, here we go. Probably need to
I'm
cool
interested.
it off first. Prepared for weirdness, but
There's
accepting of
not
good.
weirdness. You're going to get the tart, you're going to get the sour, you're going to get the sweet, you're going to get the salt, you're going to get everything.
I was expecting to taste onion.
You
It's
don't?
not there. It's
No.
not there. I
No.
was like, it's like my brain is saying there's onion there, and then you're like, no, it's not.
No.
Where is it? There's like all the, oh my goodness. All right. I need some more.
Actually, you are tasting.
I'm literally getting tingles. Like my body is like, yeah, my
It's
mouth is
yummy.
somehow making my body tingle. This is crazy.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And so you actually are tasting the onion, you just don't know it. It is so far back in your in your nasal cavities that you
That is so weird. You don't taste any of the flavors.
You know, and that's a very interesting thing about cooking. You know, you don't want to always tell people everything that's in there because they'll say, oh, I don't like onions. And you can't really say, well, you're not going to taste it. It rounds out a flavor. It's what they call a flavor profile, in that not one ingredient, probably other than the apples, is coming through.
I don't even taste the apples. It's just there's no like a single taste. It's just good.
I would say that you are tasting the apples, but you're tasting the apples intensified in a certain way.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and I am extremely happy about the way that this recipe intensifies the apples. It takes out some of the things about apples that necessarily, you know, would be associated with eating a raw apple, but it intensifies other things about the experience of eating an apple. It really does. I mean, and so when I make this, it disappears. It just,
I just saying.
yeah. So you're happy with yours?
Yeah, I was like, I didn't, yeah. I picked this one of all your like 6 recipes you sent me because I was like, this is totally weird. And you were like, but you also put a description in there saying, you know, the flavor profile. I don't know why I'm like scooping it out like I'm being a professional chef into a little spoon, because I'm just going to eat the whole thing. I'm like, all right. I was just like, this is my pot.
It disappears fast when I make it. And part of the reason is that I eat it myself, and I'm going to eat a little more right now.
But yeah, I mean, part of it is I really like the texture. It's like, it's soft, but it has just a little chewiness to it with the.
That's because you left the peels on.
Yep.
You can get, it gives a little chew to it. And as you chew, you release the tart. And it's really, you're not going to buy that in a grocery store.
How this is so weird. I'm like, every time I take the taste, I'm like, where's the cinnamon? Where's the onion? Where's the
Where's the
where's
whiskey?
the apple?
Yeah. Now it's just a flavor profile. I didn't know that. I've heard that term, but I never thought about it. But anyway, so there you have it.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Well, I should probably like.
I think we chased them all off. Looks like there's something in the chat. I can't see it from here.
Okay.
I do
So-
have a question. I am not a proficient person to can things, but would this be a good thing to, you know, put in a mason jar in a bath and try to seal it for longevity?
If you vacuum seal this, this will last for a long time. In fact, this is something you can can.
Okay.
I say that because I make tomato sauce every summer when the tomatoes are at their height of flavor, and I just put it in the freezer. I don't even bother to vacuum seal it. But if you vacuum seal this, and so here's a fun fact. I learned to do this in the way that I'm doing it, although this is my version. But my grandmother would make what she called baked apples out of the green apples from her orchard. She picked the ones that looked like weren't going to make it to full ripe. because they had flaws or the birds were already at them or something like that. And she would take me into her kitchen in Kentucky and she would cook those things up and she would can them. And I mean, those were the best apples you could eat. Now, she didn't do anything like what she did. There was no whiskey, there was no onion powder. There was a lot of butter involved in it. Whereas I don't use these things at all. But I watched her do this, and I watched her canning the green apples that she knew weren't going to make it to full ripe. She would pick them once the birds had already sort of marred them or whatever.
Yep.
And make them into something like this. And so, well, I say something like it wasn't anything like this, but she canned them and we could eat them 7, 8 years later. And they were good. I have no doubt that the process that we've done here doesn't introduce anything into the apples that would tend to mold or go bad. And so,
well, I mean, I love it that it's sweet and sour without putting any sweetener or sour in it.
you don't have to,
I mean, so.
And
You're-
all right.
or if you wanted to make it like healthful for you and use the turmeric, there's no reason why you couldn't add some sort of fat to it
Right.
to accomplish
Yeah.
the dietary, requirements that you seek. So that's a thought.
Yeah. So, all right. Thank you so much, Randy. And I hope to have you back on because
well, I
you
have,
got the quirky,
I have a lot of
food.
recipes I have a lot of recipes.
Just like,
So,
yeah.
all right.
Thank you.
So long.